Hi, my name is Nancy Hartley, and I'm currently a board member on the Women's Foundation Colorado board. So it's with great pleasure that I share that experience with you and can tell you that our mission dedicated to the economic self-sufficiency for women and girls and the research that Louise just presented is fundamental to our organization and to our support of women and girls throughout the state of Colorado. As part of this research, we hope to inform practice. As you can see from some of the examples here, I think we've done a good job of that so far. We want to be good stewards of the money that's been donated to us, and we want to improve the communities in the state of Colorado that we work with, as well as, inform public policy. We've been involved with much research, and I just want to briefly mention, because it's some of the things that Louise has said that really picks up on this study tonight. We've really been involved in the self-sufficiency standard in the state of Colorado with our partner, the Center for Law and Policy. That work is critical because poverty does not tell us the entire equation. The cost of living in the state of Colorado is far above the standards for poverty. So it's one example where we need to work and inform policy to enhance that self-sufficiency standard and really talk about what would be a livable wage in the state of Colorado. In addition, our work on child care affordability, and you'll be seeing a new study come out in the next few weeks actually around that I think will excite you, and will excite you because again, we cannot improve the lives of women if we don't work on the cost of childcare, because it's keeping some people out of the workforce currently or creating huge barriers to their work. And of course, the work on the cliff effect has worked with many about if people do receive work supports, when do they go away? And when a small raise impacts women wanting to turn down promotions and increases because they'll lose those work supports, does not benefit anyone. So that's just an example of some of the things we've been involved in, as well as giving money to various nonprofits through the state of Colorado to further our work and our mission. The findings presented tonight shed light on some of the key issues related to the economic status. But I'm here to say Colorado may be doing better than some states and may be best in the first, or may be identified as the first in the Mountain West states. But we have much to do. There is much work that has not been done, and we need your help in fulfilling those goals, and I think fulfilling the lives of women and girls in the state of Colorado. As pointed out earlier, pay equity is a big part of the equation. If Colorado women earn the same as comparable men, the poverty rate for all working women would be cut in half, and we would be bolstering our economy. With that said, I think it's time to now hear from our panelists, and I'd like to take time to introduce each of them to you. Their role tonight will be to give a short overview of their thoughts from their individual perspectives. They represent various areas that I will talk about as we introduce them. And then I'm going to ask each one of them to provide one recommendation for action, so we can hear from them what they think we need to be doing with this research. We will then have time for a question and answer session from the audience. So let's get started. First presenter, Dr. Alex Bernasek, CSU Professor of Feminist Economics at Colorado State University.
Thank you, Nancy. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Louise, for an excellent presentation. I'm just sad to say that I've heard these statistics for far too long, and the progress has been far too slow. From my perspective, as a feminist economist, the root cause of the gender pay gap is really, very simply, the cultural devaluing of women and femininity, and in turn, the work that women do. This is a cultural devaluing that occurs, sadly to say, across all societies. It's ubiquitous. It's ubiquitous when we see women having lower status, lower pay, and fewer opportunities to participate in social and political life everywhere around the globe. And as I said, as women are devalued, their work also is devalued. What is devalued is the unpaid work of care that they are primarily responsible for within our societies, and the paid work that they do in the labor market as well. The evidence of this is overwhelming, and the research spans many, many, many different areas. A recent article in the New York Times states, women's median annual earnings stubbornly remain about 20% of men's. Why is progress stalling? It may come down to this troubling reality new research suggests. Work done by women simply isn't valued as highly. I can go through a plethora of studies, and I probably shouldn't. So if you have some questions, I can refer to these later. But again, a recent article in Scientific American found evidence of the devaluation of women's work in the sciences. And I'll quote, in one study, science faculty were given identical resumes in which the names and genders of two applicants were swapped. Both male and female faculty judged the male applicant to be more competent and offered him a higher salary. So the rhetoric of the end of discrimination and gender equality is really in stark contrast to the gender inequality that we continue to see in our society. And while overt discrimination may be less of a problem today and may be less prevalent, something else is quite clearly still alive and well. And I think that is very deeply held unconscious biases that are held by women and held by men. And these are biases that we are typically not aware of and may even surprise us when we're confronted by them. If women are not seen as valuable as men, women of color are seen as even less valuable. And as we saw from the statistics, the penalties that they face in the labor market are harsh indeed. So not only are they penalized by being women, they are penalized by being non-white, and we cannot lose sight of these intersectionalities between race, ethnicity, gender, and class in labor markets. Speaking of labor markets, when patriarchy met capitalism, the normative worker was formed, and he was a man, presumably a breadwinner for his family, who could devote himself to paid labor without any attachments or competing demands on his time in the home. The mythology of that normative worker was that he could somehow support a family on a single wage. Now, more than ever, that normative worker is clearly not the norm. And what we see are workers who, half of the labor force being women, and again, many of the statistics that we heard from Louise play into this. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but ultimately we would like to see a labor market where the normative worker is a worker who can make consistent their caring work in the home and their work for wages in the labor market, and the kind of penalties that single mothers face in the labor market are eliminated. But I need to get back to my main point before I can elaborate on that. The root of the cultural and economic devaluation of women and the feminine is, I believe, the social responsibility that has been assigned to women for the care, particularly of children, but also of the elderly and of others within the family who need care. The key to pay equity and to equity in society generally is to value that work of care, to truly value that work of care, economically, socially, politically. Care work is a classic example of a positive externality in economics. The individuals who provide that care create benefits not simply for the people who are cared for, but for the society in general. We benefit from having children who are healthy, happy, educated, well-adjusted, and so on. And we pay a price when that is not achieved. And so in economics, it's quite simple. If individuals will not devote enough resources to that care because the benefits spill over to others, society must devote resources to that care. The public provision of care is critical to valuing the work of care. And so, these activities cannot be left to individuals. They cannot be left to individuals to fend for themselves. And you may say, well, we don't do that. We have supports. We have childcare supports. We have these things. And yes, we do. But we provide them in a way that stigmatizes, demeans, shames, and punishes those who are forced to rely on them. So I'm going to jump to my recommendation, Nancy, in the context of my remarks. What would a social support look like if it truly valued the work of caring for children? It would be available to all families and all caregivers, whether they be women or men. It would be possible to use the support to take time to look after your own children or to pay somebody to provide high-quality care for your child. Say you're a single mom who wants to go and get an education. It would be generous. Think about how much it costs to provide quality childcare. It would be provided to everyone who has children, regardless of their level of income, because the value of the work has nothing to do with how we are valued in the labor market. And it would be provided to all people, regardless of their race and ethnicity. The kind of social support for caregiving that I'm thinking about would be a catalyst for change, and I think ultimately the key to achieving pay equity in the long run. Because it addresses the root cause of gender inequity, the cultural devaluing of women and the feminine and the work that women do. Putting care work at the center of the economy and the society would change what we value, and it would change the way the economy functions, the society functions, and the political system functions. So maybe, just maybe, we could create an economic system that actually works for people rather than have an economic system that we work for. So those are my thoughts. That's my idea. I'm sorry, I jumped a little bit ahead. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Michelle Webster with the Colorado Center on Law and Policy Research and Policy Analysis Manager. Michelle.
Yes. Thank you. It's great to see everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. And I guess first I want to say I really appreciate your comments because I had hoped to get here a little earlier today, but was bridging the gap in my childcare schedule, so wasn't able to get on the road as soon as I had wanted to. So this is certainly a reality that many of us are living every day. Yes, louder? Sorry, I talked. The mic. Thank you. So my remarks today, I want to first focus on, pick up on a trend that Louise talked about, which is that part of the closing of the gender gap in recent years is actually due to what's happening in the larger economy. So I'm with the Colorado Center on Law and Policy. Every year we put out a report called The State of Working Colorado, where we examine trends in the Colorado economy, and particularly from the perspective of how the economy is impacting low-income individuals and families. And as Louise mentioned, we have seen a closing of the gender gap slightly in recent years, and that is in part due to what's happening to wages generally, both nationally and in Colorado. So as we all know, as we all read in the headlines, the Colorado economy is doing really quite well along a number of fronts, but it's not doing as well as it could be for working families, and in particular women. So the median wage in Colorado is actually still slightly down than before the recession began. And if we look back even farther, when adjusting for inflation, wages for the vast majority of workers in the state are still down from 2000. And this is a trend that is found across the board, across industries, across educational levels, And in fact, wages for people with a college degree in Colorado are down 2.5% since 2000. So while all the jobs that were lost during the recession have returned, and then some, many more than were lost, an increasing share of these new jobs don't pay self-sufficiency wages. And Louise talked about the self-sufficiency standard for Colorado that CCLBP produces. And what we have found when we look at what it actually takes to get by and meet all your basic needs, that the jobs that pay those wages, those self-sufficiency wages, are actually higher. The increase in jobs has mostly been in those low-paying jobs. So Colorado has almost 290,000 more low-wage jobs in 2014 compared to 2007. And according to the Economic Policy Institute, speaking of low-wage jobs, the eroding value of the minimum wage is one of the significant drivers of stagnant wages and growing income inequality. Low-wage workers earn less today despite being more educated, despite being more productive, despite working longer hours. And updating the minimum wage would lift the standard of living for many low-wage workers in Colorado, most of whom are adults, and nearly 60% who are women. So Louise also talked about the gender poverty gap. And poverty rates are highest among single mother families, we know that. But single mother families account for 11% of total households in Colorado, but are nearly 40% of households living in poverty. And if we look at the median annual income among single mother families in Colorado, it's about $30,000 a year, which is only 64% of the median income for single father households, and just 1/3 of the median income for married households. And illustrating the importance of education on economic stability, poverty rates of women and the gender gap diminishes with progressively higher levels of education. So moving to I'm gonna actually recommend two things. This issue of helping single mothers or low-income mothers in particular get the education they need to be economically self-sufficient is so key. So they need the education and they also need the childcare. Now CCLP, with the support of the Women's Foundation, has been working on these issues. We did a series of focus groups with low-income women to learn about what sort of barriers they have, what sort of barriers they face in getting the education and training that they need. And what we found is that the group of women that we talked to, they had certainly had issues with getting the childcare that they needed. But once they got the training, they had a hard time translating that training into stable employment. And part of the issue for them, for this group of women, who was a very resourceful group, was that they were getting training from mostly private occupational schools. There wasn't a lot of information about where they should be going to get that training and what schools are quality schools and what sort of training they should be investing their limited resources in. So that's one thing, is providing better, more robust information to help women connect what sort of training they need to the jobs that will lead to economic self-sufficiency. And then the second thing is that we really need to increase the minimum wage in Colorado. This will make a huge difference for families across the state immediately and inject needed money into local economies. So, thank you.
Can you hear me? I wanted to make sure if I stay here that the mic was working adequately. Next, I'd like to introduce Stephanie Slayton from Project Self-Sufficiency, Program Manager and Advisor, and a program that the Women's Foundation of Colorado has funded for their good work.
Thank you, Nancy. I feel extremely privileged to be here as an alumni of this institution, and also with so many powerful women impacting the status of women and girls in our community, because the work that we do at the ground level could not happen without research about best practices, couldn't happen without lobbyists working on these issues at the state and national level, and it couldn't happen without the generous funding that we receive through the Women's Foundation to put forth some of these initiatives, particularly in the fields of STEM and providing internships and scholarships and childcare to women. So our partnerships are critical to the work we do at Project Self-Sufficiency. And what we do at our organization is work and partner with single parents, primarily moms, who are pursuing career paths that will lead to better employment. And they face all of the barriers that you just heard about. And in my 10 years with the organization, I have worked with over 100 single moms, and the organization as a whole has worked with over 1,000 women. And what we see every day coming through our doors is mirrored in the data and research that you see up on the screen. So these aren't just numbers. These numbers each have a face and a name, and those faces and names have small children, and the work that we do is really important. And if you think about how moms and dads are role models for their kids, it becomes even more critical that we make these strides. So while we're waiting for the pay to catch up in the next 40 years, we can talk a little bit about what's happening now and what we can be doing now to help women until we get there. So what I've noticed in my work with these women is that there are really three things that are very impactful to this wage difference. The first is that women do not always have access to those early post-secondary education and work experiences that their counterparts do. And this is for a variety of reasons. Some become moms. There is still cultural devaluation of women entering post-secondary education after high school. Some have other cultural experiences that keep them from going to work right away. Second, women often choose careers in the helping professions, which pay significantly less than male-dominated careers. And finally, female heads of household are often trapped by the cliff effect, which keeps them in low-wage, part-time employment. If the median annual earnings for a woman are $40,000 per year, and we compare that to the 2015 self-sufficiency wage that the Center for Law and Policy just put out, which says that a mom with 2 little kids needs to earn $56,000 a year just to make her basic needs. The standard, which takes into account current childcare costs, transportation expenses, housing costs, food costs, etc., for this area is a much more accurate picture of where we need to be helping women get to. At Project Self-Sufficiency, every mom who comes through the door sits down with her advisor and calculates her personal self-sufficiency wage. And imagine her surprise to find out she needs to earn over $50,000 to take care of her family without work supports. The average income for that same mom who comes in that door is between $10,000 and $14,000 a year when she comes to us, primarily because she has gaps in her education and employment that make it impossible for her to find better employment. The difference between earning $10,000 per year and $56,000 per year can really only be resolved through the pursuit of living wage employment in non-traditional sectors or employment that requires a significant amount of education. And women have specific barriers to education, including childcare costs, the high cost of education, and gaps in secondary level education. So the Institute on Women's Policy and Research recently put out a report that showed that parents who are trying to go to school, on average, owe or have a $6,000 gap in what they need for their education annually. That's a big gap to come up with when you're only earning $10,000 a year. This report here states that women are making progress in pursuing management and professional careers. Yet women traditionally choose careers that pay less, despite requiring a significant amount of education. We do career assessments with every participant in our program. Based on the Holland Code, women answer questions about the kind of tasks they like to do, their interests, work environments that they enjoy, and invariably the majority of them score high in areas like social and artistic and conventional. And these map to jobs like social work and teaching and childcare and caregiving and even office admin assistants. This report shared with us that women earn less money at every educational level, and that pans out in our work every day. So we have many, many women who pursue those social work degrees, and they'll go on to get a master's degree, and they'll earn 45, maybe 50,000. But their male counterparts will get a bachelor's degree in computer information systems and start out earning over $70,000 and maybe not have the childcare expenses. Still, it is promising that more women are pursuing bachelor's level degrees, as earnings do tend to be more, even double what they would have earned with a high school diploma. And the unemployment rates do drop by 50%. In addition to barriers to education and low-wage career choices, working mothers face the triple threat of the cliff effect. Women in poverty often enter the workforce to survive, but then are challenged by earning too much to secure benefits such as food assistance and childcare to support their families. This contributes to the higher number of women working part-time at low wages to avoid what is commonly known as the cliff effect. Working mothers will turn down raises and offers of advancement to avoid losing critical work supports. This further drives down the wages that women earn. It means we have more women without health care, meaning that they're one medical disaster away from falling back into poverty. It also contributes to the stereotype that we have about welfare moms and why they don't want to work. So what can we do to help women overcome gaps in education or employment, select living wage careers, and move past the cliff effect? And Nancy said I had to pick one solution, but I don't have just one. And if any of you know about Project Self-Sufficiency, you know we don't just do one thing. It's not a one-size-fits-all type of program. It's individualized, and it tries to meet the needs of each person from where they're at to where they want to go. And so we do that, tackle these issues, by connecting women with innovative career assessments and career counseling that encourage them to explore STEM, non-traditional, and brighter outlook career options. And when they've done those self-sufficiency wages and they're reminded throughout that career assessment of what they need to earn, it helps them choose careers that will help them get to where they want to be. We connect women to supports that remove barriers to education, such as shorter-term training options, tailored scholarships, childcare solutions, flexible classroom options, and on-the-job training solutions. The Women's Foundation and Women Give have been instrumental in helping us provide these supports that remove barriers for women. And we provide paid internships specifically for women in STEM careers, non-traditional, and living wage careers. The experience gained and the networking that happens through the internship experience can dramatically improve starting wages that launch a woman's income over the cliff effect. As a community, we can encourage employers to hire based on skills, certifications, and other types of assessments that do not require lengthy education programs. We can also encourage employers to set wages for each job based on the value of the position and level of expertise required, not on the candidate's experience and background. And as one LinkedIn blogger recently posted, we can ask employers to pay like you're hiring your own daughter. Merit, not manhood, should be the only guiding principle in pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next, I'd like to introduce Louise. You've met her during her presentation a little earlier, but we'd like to see hear about Louise's response and recommendations.
Thank you, Nancy. And I promise I won't speak as long this time as I did earlier. You've heard a great deal about the research the Women's Foundation has invested in, and we're working so hard to share with communities across the state. And I won't go through any more of the statistics with you today, but I will share appreciation and a recommendation. I want to thank my fellow panelists for the work you are all doing. This is exactly the work the Women's Foundation wants to invest in to advance the progress that we see as so necessary to achieve that broad mission I shared with you earlier, to build resources and lead change so that every woman and girl in Colorado achieves her full potential. I'm really pleased to be part of a strong team here this evening. My fellow staff members of the Women's Foundation, many are here today. Our fearless leader, Lauren Castile, is here with us. I'm grateful to be sitting next to a trustee and to also call your attention to two women here in the audience this evening who are really leaders here in Northern Colorado. Michelle Markwitz and Amy Kolchak, I hope that you will wave, stand, greet the group. Michelle and Amy are leading the Northern Colorado Regional Committee of the Women's Foundation of Colorado. They are volunteering with tremendous dedication, a lot of time and effort to do exactly what it is I am going to share with you as my recommendation, to engage the community in everything we're learning about and discussing tonight. We're hearing excellent recommendations. We're hearing and seeing staggering statistics. We're identifying opportunities for progress and change. And this is not enough. If the conversation ends in this room, this is the same conversation you're going to come back to be a part of next year, and no progress will be made. My recommendation, my request to you tonight is to continue this work, to engage members of your community, members of your stakeholder groups in learning what you've learned this evening, sharing this research, staying connected with the Women's Foundation and our partners as we learn more to better inform our next steps. Please do check with us when next month we release a report on how to strengthen the child care workforce so that workers in childcare, those leading this critical service for every member of our community, have the opportunity to earn a self-sufficient wage, while also ensuring that families can continue to access and have a more affordable option for childcare. Please check back with us when in May we'll be releasing a research-based resource guide for engaging girls in STEM. We're hearing so much about what tremendous earning potential is available in STEM careers. But girls, as early as in the 3rd and 4th grade, are being told and taught in many small ways that STEM is not for them. I had the experience in junior high of being in a small, advanced math class I was really excited about. I was the geeky kid who went to math counts competitions on the weekends. Seriously. And I had a female teacher sit the 4 girls in the classroom at one table and the 6 boys in the classroom at the other. And she sat on the end of my table with her back to me and the girls in the class, and she taught to our male classmates. Share this information, please, with those who have influence in the education sector, with teachers, with administrators, with district leaders. Please share what you're learning tonight with our policy leaders. Thank you, Senator Caballas, for being here tonight to be a part of this discussion. And to take this back to the Capitol with you to ensure that the policy progress that's being made is informed and driving in the right direction. Thank you all so much for being here tonight to be a part of this discussion. And thank you for taking the charge to do more. I introduced you to Amy and to Michelle so that you will know who is leading the charge here in Northern Colorado and who you can connect with to become more closely connected with the Women's Foundation and to take part in this work. Thank you.